evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tuesday Talks with Tonia. And I am very glad to have all of you joining us this evening on Tuesday, March 23rd. I can't believe March is almost over. Spring is upon us. Easter is upon us. Spring break is upon us. It just doesn't seem like we're already 4 months into this new year of 2021. So we're made it this far, and I'm grateful. Know you guys are as well. Tonight's topic, I'm so excited to talk with Amy Hall. She's the executive director of Safe Homes of Augusta, which is our domestic violence shelter here in the city. And in light of all of the domestic violence we've seen increasing over the last few days and weeks, we just had someone right in my backyard. Actually, I'm in Grovetown, and where it happened is Haines Station, which is not far from where I live. The two young ladies that were murdered at the hands of domestic violence. And so, but prior to that, I had some people reach out to me individually that actually know each other, and they were calling for separate people, but they were like, hey, I got a call and this is what's going on. It's a domestic violence situation. What do I do? What do I tell them? Where do I send them? They had no clue. So they figured I knew, which I do, thanks to my connection with Amy and Safe Homes. And just, I try to stay aware and abreast of what's going on in our community. But this is not just an Augusta issue. It's not just a Georgia issue. It's a national, international issue. It happens across state lines. It happens in other countries. And so I really have been thinking about it and praying about it, and wanted to give an opportunity for the expert to come on and share with us how we can save our sisters. And that's why I titled it Saving Our Sisters, a Candid Conversation on Domestic Violence. So Amy Hall has been the executive director, or for as long as I know. I mean, I've been in Augusta 22 years almost, and I know she came aboard probably right after I got to Augusta.
Almost 16 years.
Yep. So, Amy, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for all that you do for our community. For those that don't know you, I want you to give a little bit of a background of who you are, what you do, what your role is, and then we'll dive right into the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you first for having me. I know we go way back, and you've
We
been a
do.
great supporter of Safe Homes. And
Yeah.
so, as you were stating, I have been at Safe Homes now 16 years, or going on
Wow.
16 years. And I started out as the finance director and served in that position for about a year and a half before taking the directorship. And I tell you, I always say I can't imagine doing this forever, but I can't imagine doing anything else either.
Right.
And because I really, truly love what I do. And, we have a staff of 20 because we run a 24/7 operation. And so, of course, I manage the staff and do a lot of the grant writing and board engagement and things like that. And then I've got a development director who really oversees, thank goodness, all the marketing and things like that, because I used to actually do all of that as well, and fundraising events. And so, yeah, so I'm
Those are a
thankful.
lot of hats.
It was, and I'm thankful now to spread the love. And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
so I work a lot, or try to, stay abreast of all the legislation and the House bills and things like that, just so we're abreast of what's going on, at the state level, so it can trickle down into the communities that we serve. So.
Yeah. So that's a lot of hats. Those are a lot of titles, but you've been in it so long. And this type of thing is not something that you haphazardly do. This is something that you have to have a heart for. You have to have compassion for. You have to be able to withstand a lot of stuff. Because me, I can volunteer and I can be on the outside and help other ways. I'm too emotional and I get attached, and things bother me. And so I know I probably couldn't do this 24 hours a day. So I commend you for what you do. This is a tedious job. It's a very heavy job. It's heavy dealing with the types of situations. And I remember coming to Safe Homes through United Way when I worked for Procter and Gamble, and we used to volunteer the day of service, and we always chose Safe Homes, and we would get to come to the homes and meet the families, and we would get to redo the yard and add a playground and paint and those types of things. And it was so small to us, but to the ladies and to the children that were there, it was important. And we got so many times people would pull us to the side and just say thank you. Nobody's been this nice to me, and we didn't know where we were going to do and what we where we were going to go and what we were going to do, but Safe Homes was there. So how many families can you guys serve at one time? I guess I want to start there.
So now we've been in our new facility for about 5 years. I can't believe that June will be 5 years.
Yeah, I
And
came to the grand opening. I came to
yes,
the
and
to the
so
groundbreaking. I came to all of it.
yeah, so you really have appreciation for where we were to
I
where we are
do.
now. And
I
so we
do.
can house up to 33 women and children at any one time. And, you know, if we have an overflow or if we have a man who needs shelter, because that does, we service men as well, then we'll put them in hotels. We do have, our facility is set up where we could house a man, if needed. However, we've learned, as y'all probably know, putting men and women in crisis in the same facility is not the best thing. And then you've got a bunch of women in there who may be terrified,
Right.
because of the abuse that she's experienced. So we found that it's better for them to stay in a hotel, but we pay for those services, for the bed nights that he's there, and we provide all the other services to them. But we can house up to 33 at any given time.
Okay. And you have staff that manages that 24 hours a day, as well as a 24-hour service hotline.
Yes, so we do have the 24-hour crisis hotline, manned 24/7 by a live person. So if you ever call that phone, unless Comcast is down, then you'll have a live person on the other end of that phone. So it's 24/7, 365 days a year, as well as our shelter. It's 24/7. But then we also have outreach. So we serve, a lot of people think that Safe Homes of Augusta, we do business as Safe Homes Inc. because we service so many more areas than just Augusta. So we service 10 counties.
Okay.
And so if someone calls that crisis hotline, we'll do an assessment on them. We'll find out the situation that they're in, find out the lethality, meaning how dangerous it is, where the abuser's at, and then from there, we can offer either shelter if they need an intimate, a place to go immediately for safety, and or we can offer outreach because not everybody needs shelter.
Right.
Matter of fact, last year we provided 1,715 people services.
Wow.
And so, yes, and so 133 of those were sheltered. So
Oh,
that just
wow.
kind of gives you the percentage.
Yeah.
Our outreach is, a larger scale, and that's because we service 10 counties too, but if someone needs shelter, then we'll bring them in. It's 30 days, 30 days emergency shelter. So while they're there in our facility, we want to give them the tools and their toolboxes, if you will, to when they leave our program, that they can survive and they can be self-sustainable and, have some freedom from that abuse. And so while they're there, we're looking for them or helping them to find a safe place to reside once they leave the shelter, helping them find some sort of means of support. So while they're there, we do a lot of workforce development. We just really started that program full-fledged like we're doing right now. So, we're partnering with Goodwill, because Helms College, we got training for life. So while they're there, and if they find an interest in CPR, first aid, certified nursing assistant, we'll pay for those classes for them to help them to be more competitive, to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we're helping them get a job too, because we've learned that the largest barrier usually for a woman is financial.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I'm going to preference, because as I'm always talking, I always say this, I reference a victim as a woman every time, just because that's the majority of the clients that we see. But, I always want to make sure everyone knows that domestic violence doesn't discriminate, as you were talking about at the beginning. And so we do service men as well.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the families, because you have to also provide resources for the children because they've been traumatized. They're probably afraid, and they still have to go to school. They still have to learn. So those are other barriers that you have to overcome from, an abused person's perspective. How do I keep my children in school, or how do I keep them educated? but at the same time keep them safe. So you guys have also children resources as well.
We do. We have a children's program, and you're right. We did a campaign. I guess it was 2019 because 2020. I don't even know what happened in 2020.
I know.
Um, and so we did a campaign that indicated just that, and you can see the video on our website. But it portrayed it from a child's eyes,
Mm,
and
mm,
because we have a school bus that comes right up to our door
wow.
and picks up those children, and they still have to go to school and function
Yeah.
every day. And
Yeah.
and so we have a children's program. We try to make sure they have counseling because we do have a counseling program, which we started probably about 5 years ago. We've always offered that, but we were having to outsource it. So I'm so proud because we now have 2 counselors on staff.
Wow. That's
And so
good.
they get counseling. We do summer camps with them. We do make sure that they get into the school either where they're zoned for, through the McKinney Veto Act. I love that because they can stay in their own schools, and or if that's not safe, then they can actually go into the schools that we're zoned for.
Yeah.
And then also too, one of our largest outreach components is the legal advocacy part. So many women and men that come to us really need that legal advocate.
Mhm.
And we can assist with temporary protection orders, which means that we will help them fill out all the paperwork. We go file it for them. We go to the ex parte, which means that's my legal advocate goes with him or her to sit in front of the judge for the very first time, tell the story. He'll sign that 30-day temporary protection order, hopefully. And then once that's signed, there's a 30-day hearing, final hearing. And we actually go to that final hearing and we'll pay for an attorney or find a pro bono attorney or use Georgia Legal to go into that courtroom with her or him at the time of the final hearing. And so a lot of our victims will utilize that temporary protection order because it does at least give some space as long as they're both abiding by it.
Right.
If the abuser breaks that temporary protection order, used to be a misdemeanor, now it's a felony. And so
Good.
yes, and so I was so proud of our legislation for passing that. So if the temporary protection order is broken and she calls 911 or he calls 911, then they'll come and they can arrest the abuser at that time.
And
So,
that's so critical to have that as a felony because a lot of times an abuser, and matter of fact, one of the calls that I received, the gentleman was calling on behalf of a female friend who stated that she was in a relationship with someone who's in law enforcement, and he threatened her that, I can kill you. And she said, well, I have a protective order. He said, that's just a piece of paper.
right.
And basically, that's how a lot of them look at it. And so, if they're able to call and get someone right away and they're able to apprehend them, at least it's a felony for them breaking it because too many times these women have this piece of paper. And again, it's a piece of paper until, they're dead or until, it's acted upon. And so, I'm glad that they made that into a felony versus a misdemeanor because that's one of the things that's scary. Yeah, I can go get a protective order, but what does it really mean for me?
Right. And our judges really take heart to that. We had a case not too long ago, and the abuser was law enforcement. And so that makes it a little bit more cumbersome because they know the ropes, they know the
Right,
law, they know
right,
what little bit they know they can get away
right,
with. They
right.
can hit or abuse in hidden places, and
Yeah,
they know.
yeah.
And so I mean, blatantly, I was shocked, just said, yes, he was using a third party to reach her. And Judge Annis was like, nope, and locked him up and he would not surrender because he was a police officer. They had to apprehend all of his guns and he
Hmm.
wouldn't turn them over. So he had to sit there.
Wow.
And I was so thankful, that our judges and our community don't take that they take
Yeah,
that to heart. That's we tell every victim when you get ready to leave, that's the most dangerous time,
it
whether you
is.
have the temporary protection order, whatever. When you get ready to leave that abusive situation, because that's at that moment that abuser is losing that power and that
Right,
control,
right,
you'll go to whatever extreme to get to her, to the kids.
right.
That's why it's just so important that we have forums like this, or we learn about those warning signs, and we learn about domestic violence, because I can guarantee you probably everybody on this call either knows someone or has been a victim of domestic violence. And so, not everybody knows that they are a victim.
Right. And
So,
that's exactly why I wanted to have you on. Just looking at the last couple of weeks and, what happened here in our city, but like I said, what's been happening from a national standpoint, even in quarantine times, you think about now this woman may not have an opportunity to get away for even a brief period of time. Like once upon a time, she was able to go to work. She was able to go to the grocery store. She was able to do these different things. And even with our children, I know the school system probably had this as well with abused children. Who's going to see the marks? Who's going to see the bruises? Who's going to see, them being distraught? So how can we as women, and that's why I titled it Saving Our Sisters, what is it that we need to look for? What is it that we need to be aware of? Signs, just anything that we could, say, hey, she may be in a situation. And how do you approach that conversation?
well, and that's the hardest part, because domestic violence, people judge it.
Yeah.
They're like, why didn't she just leave? Did she
Yeah.
like that? Did she, you know, everybody just says, why don't you just leave? And that's not the question to ask, because
Yeah.
there's so many barriers
Yeah.
of why she can't leave. And so, I just encourage everyone to get involved. We always say domestic violence, it is your business. If and now the world is so dangerous, like,
Hmm.
you can still pick up that phone and call 911.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have to intervene, because now
Right.
it's almost too dangerous to do that anymore, but you can
Right.
still pick up that phone and call 911 if you see something. I was at the hospital not too long ago with my stepdad, and this lady walked in, and just by her demeanor,
Mm.
I thought, and she was with her mom, and I
Mm.
thought, she's a victim. And I
Wow.
kept, and it was so funny. And I do this work. I've been doing it for 16 years. And I said, okay, God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to
Yeah.
go, because I thought, well,
Yeah.
if she's not, and
Hmm.
then if I
Right.
offend her, or if she is and I don't, then what?
Right.
And I kept, so I
Right.
bargained. Now, good and well, you don't bargain with God. But
Right.
I
I
said,
do. I
I do
do.
too. I
I
said, all
do.
right, God, if I have a business card, I will go over there, because I never had business cards. I had one business card in my purse, and I thought, my husband's like,
Wow.
he was sitting there with me. He said, "You're going to die or bust." He said, "Go on over there."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I did, and I went over there and just talked to her, and I just approached her very simply and just said, you know, "I'm Amy. I'm with Safe Homes, and I just noticed, with your mom, and I was just concerned for you, and here's my card. If you need any assistance, Safe Homes is a resource." Never said she was.
Right.
I didn't approach it like that, because I didn't want her to feel embarrassed or shameful. But I just said, here's a resource if needed. And she came into our shelter that night.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
thought, thank you, because if I had
Yeah.
not,
If
if
you
I
had
had
not
not
been
been
obedient to
out,
that, yeah.
yes. And,
Yeah.
so, but again, if I hadn't have been so mindful to watch, and just
Hmm.
looking and noticing her demeanor. And you're not going to notice
Right.
everybody, because we
Right.
where they're out in public, and you're not going to notice a thing.
Right.
Like probably with the incident that just happened, you hear all of the interviews that have been taking place, and no one has said there was domestic violence, not
Right.
even the ex-wife.
Right.
But you don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
Right. Right.
So when you do recognize it, so we always say, if isolation is the big key. When you're a victim, that abuser don't want you around other people, because chances are you're going to talk. They're
Right.
going to notice something. So
Right.
isolation, not being able to hang out with your friends, your family, name calling, degrading. An abuser kind of they usually magnify that abuse through anger, and you can usually pick up on it. But even if you're like, I don't know, if you have that vibe,
Hmm.
something in your gut may not be right,
Yeah.
then just have a conversation. Say, hey, have you ever heard of Safe Homes? I mean,
Right.
you can approach that in any way to make sure that they know that there's a resource out there
Right.
for them. And again, when we think of domestic violence and we think of physical, but it's so much more because there's the financial abuse. So,
Mhm.
we had one of the ladies that came through, who was just dear to my heart. When she came to us, I had never seen what I saw. Like, I don't know how she survived the physical aspect of everything that he did to her.
Mhm.
Um, Law enforcement or ex-law enforcement. So he knew to grab, like, he knew to grab her hair.
Mhm.
He knew,
Mhm.
different things to do to her. Um, but when you were out in public, you would have never ever known that that was going on. So
Yeah.
these women are facing a lot, behind, and if the man's a victim, they're facing a lot behind closed doors that
Yeah.
we don't see. But in every situation, I think there's something that leads up to it. Unless you just snap, and you don't hear about that many people just snapping that they're going to
Right.
go and kill someone, there's usually some sort of warning sign,
Yeah.
some sort of indication. And so just learning what those are, and then not being afraid to just somehow or another slip them a card or slip them something to let them know that, there are resources. And two, with another thing, we help a lot of family members. There's so many moms, sisters who call and say, my daughter's in an abusive situation, or
Mhm.
my sister's in an abusive, I don't know what to do. And I
Right.
think that's the hardest part about our job, is I
Yeah.
want to rescue. I want to bring them
Mhm.
all home. I want to
Right.
make sure everybody's safe,
Right.
they're fed.
Right.
And it has to be their choice because they know
Yes.
the situation. They know the danger of that situation. So
Yeah.
they have to be ready. And I think that's the hardest part of what we do. And so we always say, make sure that if you're talking with someone, you don't say, well, why don't you just leave? She can't just leave.
Right.
But be that listening ear, because you want to keep that line of communication open so
Open.
she has someone to trust. Two, we do a lot of safety planning with our victims. So from, taking a few dollars and setting it aside with someone you trust, going ahead and getting copies of documentations and leaving it with someone that you trust. Maybe going a different way to work every day. Like, we do all kind of different kind of safety plans with the ladies that we serve, and with the children. Um, just because, again, if they are able to escape, even if they could escape during the night, at least they've got some of their things that they may need,
Yeah.
to leave. Um, but yeah, it's just it's dreadful on some days, but I'm so thankful that we're here. And,
Yeah.
and you were right to talk about, like, even through quarantine, during that time, Governor Kemp kept coming on and he kept saying, domestic violence is on a rise. I do believe domestic violence was on a rise.
Yep.
I have no doubt in my mind that domestic violence and child abuse was on a rise.
Right.
But when you're quarantined and
Yeah.
you're not going to work and the
Yep.
children aren't going to school, and then
Yep.
you've got the stressors of, I'm losing my job, or where's the next dollar
Right.
coming from?
Right.
There's incidents that are going on in that home, and they couldn't call, and we would not get any calls. And it dawned on me that one of my victims, that I was just telling you about, with her husband, and she said, if I was still in that situation, he would have killed me and no one would have known.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and that's when it hit me, like, oh my gosh, that's why. And
Yeah.
and I mean, we never closed, of course, but we never, like, I'm like, we're just going to break the some of these,
Rules.
rules, and we don't have more than 10 in here. If
That's
we need
right.
more than 10 in
That's
here,
right.
just to make sure that everyone was safe.
Because
So
right, you prefer them to be safe and alive than to leave them in that situation and they're dead. Like, I
right,
mean, those were basically the options. And I
right,
like what you said earlier. You said domestic violence is everyone's business, because a lot of times it is, what goes on in this house stays in this house. I mean, I grew up with that saying with my mom. And when you become an adult, you're like, wait, what if something in that house is hurting me, harming me, whatever. And I feel like there's no one I can talk to, because you're telling me that this is our business. And even if I'm a child or a sibling or a sister or somebody saying, hey, my mom is going through this, but she said that I can't tell anyone, that we can't talk about it. So even the children are conditioned that, yeah, dad may be beating mom up or whatever the case may be, but we can't say anything. And I look at the children going to school with all of this pressure on them. You know, I have to go home and I have to hear all this, but then I have to go to school and I have to do my schoolwork and then I can't tell anyone. And it's no wonder that a lot of our children are on medication and a lot of our children have psychological issues because of the environment that they're in. And I'm the type of person, I'm not nosy, but I'm paying attention. Like, and I will get in your business, especially if I feel like you're in danger, you're in trouble, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this. And it's everybody's business. And a few years ago, we did the campaign, It Takes a Man.
Yeah.
And when I came up with that, the thought behind it is the majority, and you said it earlier, men are victims too, but the majority of victims are women. And so I said it takes a man because it takes another man to check a man. Hey, that's not acceptable in my community. Hey, that's not acceptable in my church. Hey, that's not. And until you have other men stepping up and holding these men accountable and, you know, challenging them in the things that they're doing to their family, to their spouse, to whomever, you know, then we will always have these issues, because at the end of the day, a woman can't beat a man. We can't fight them. We can't, you know, any of that. So I think it's important for everybody, man, woman, boy, girl, it doesn't matter. If you see something, say something. And if you don't know what to say, or if you don't know what to do, they can reach out to you guys and say, hey, this is what I've seen. This is what I've heard. What do you do? And we have a question right now from Miss Linda. And she said, let me go to it. How do you make an anonymous call to law enforcement for a child?
So, is she asking like how would we do that, or how would she do that? Well, let me answer both ways. I'll answer both ways. So anytime that if you know of a family who's of domestic violence and there's a child either witnessing domestic violence and or being abused themselves, you can make an anonymous call to DFACS easily, you know, and they can do a well visit. And if they go out there and, you know, they can verify the evidence or whatever, and then they can actually, we work close with DFACS and they can refer the victim to us, and then we can start that process. And we work hand in hand with DFACS to work on her case plan, because our goal is not to take that child from mom. Our goal is to make sure that child is safe. Mm-hmm. And if mom is doing what she can to rectify that and get the child out, whether it's getting a temporary protection order because that's getting him out, or whether she's coming into shelter, then DFACS works with mom with that. Now, if they come to our shelter and DFACS, you know, is not involved already, and she's like absolutely positively going back and she discloses something, then we're mandated reporters and we have to call DFACS and report that. But that's only if there's evidence that we can prove, or if there's any kind of disclosure. When we will never call law enforcement unless there's something visible that we need to, if someone's fixing to harm themselves or something in that manner. But if a mom comes to us and there's a child who's being abused, we do not call law enforcement. We do call DFACS. But law enforcement is a great tool for us, a great resource. And there's so many of them that are great first responders. But there's also some that have been doing this line of work as long as I have, and they get tired of going out there and they get tired of going to the same calls. And they don't get the training that they need for them to have. The majority of the calls that they take is domestic violence. And so they don't know. And so we do a lot of trainings to law enforcement to make sure that they understand the signs, making sure that they understand what an aggressor may look like. That just because you go out on a scene and mom is out there yelling and screaming and she looks as she might be the one out of control and the abuser, that's her safe place, because that police officer is there. Right. But we have never had to call police. But if the person who's, I think she said Miss Linda is one who needs to call law enforcement, then I would pick up that phone. If you know of someone who's being abused and you know that child, then you call law enforcement and you can report it and say that you're anonymous. And I can't 100% guarantee, but I have almost 100% guarantee they will go out for a well visit, and or they'll direct you to DFACS. So I hope I answered that.
Does that answer your question, Miss Linda?
Yes, ma'am. I'm a DoorDash driver,
Oh,
and I've made a lot of deliveries during COVID. And just this past Sunday, I encountered a young lady who came to the door, and her demeanor was it was just something just makes me keep thinking about this young lady, that something wasn't right. Usually when you drop off a delivery, the person will wave to you or look to see who's delivering food. But this was, if she was 18, I would be surprised that she was that old. And the delivery was unusually large. So I have a bad feeling about it. And I called Richmond County non-emergency police line for a well check, but didn't really get a call back. So I didn't know where to go from here. That's why I'm glad this is happening tonight, because this just
yeah.
happened today.
You
And I
know,
have the address still in my phone. So should I call DFAX? Because I really don't know how old she is.
right. I would.
Okay.
If you can't get a response out of law enforcement, I would definitely call DFAX and do an anonymous call, because they're going to do some sort of visit on this family.
Okay.
They may not can verify anything, but if you call DFAX and just request and tell them what you saw or what you're feeling, and that that this could be possibly a child, you just feel like something is not right. And if they could do a well visit, they have to do a well visit.
Thank you.
And you can do it anonymously by all means.
I'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Linda. Amy, can you talk a little bit about, you've talked about all the services you guys provide. How do you pay for it? That's something that I know you think about every day, but most people don't cognitively think about. They think, oh, Safe Homes is supported by the city, or Safe Homes is supported by grants, and they don't understand how that works. So how do you guys fund what you do, the programs you offer?
Absolutely. So all of our services and programs to the victims are totally free. So in that case, we do raise our dollars. And I always say this, because I think this is what's so great about Safe Homes, is that, there's 48 domestic violence shelters in the state of Georgia. We're all our own entity. There's no hierarchy. So all the money that we raise stays right here in our area. And I love that. I think that's so important, that it just doesn't go everywhere, and it surely doesn't pay for admin. I can adjust to that and, attest to that. And so a majority of my staff is all program centered. And so we write grants. We get state funding. I write for federal funding. We do fundraising events. We have third-party events, which means that, somebody in our community may put on a golf tournament and we're the beneficiaries. We have those. But really, it's all about relationship and stewardship. And, and I usually, when I go out and talk, or we're doing trainings, or we're at Rotary or something, there's usually someone that's compelled to give, because when you hear, again, it's touching. It's touched someone. And and most of our community is, they've been wonderful, even through COVID. I have to say, this year, I'm worried about, and I'm a little concerned about future, but our community, we've had to cancel 2 fundraisers this year, and our community came forth and still supported and still sponsored, even though there wasn't an event to sponsor.
Wow.
And so it just says a lot. It makes me proud because of our reputation, and that people believe in our mission.
And that's what I was going to say, is the mission. They believe in the mission.
It's the mission. And so we raise all of our dollars either through grant writing and or fundraising, and or just going out there and just sharing the story.
And sometimes people want to get involved, more intimately. So volunteering, I know with COVID right now, it's probably not as easy. I know when I first started volunteering at Safe Homes, I used to do the grocery shopping. So this is when you guys were off of Walton Way, and
Yeah,
I would come in, I would get the grocery list, I would go to Kroger, do the grocery shopping and come, and then I would be there stuffing bags and doing different things. So if someone wanted to get involved more intimately, and even, through COVID, or if there's some things that you guys may need now, what's the best way to do that?
well, we are accepting volunteers back into the facility. We're still taking all the precautions of mask wearing and washing hands and checking your temperature and that sort of thing. But if you want to volunteer, there's two ways to do that on our website, which is Safe Homes DB for domestic violence, safehomesdb.org. There's a whole volunteer section. You can find out all the opportunities, but it can be anywhere from direct service, from grocery shopping, answering the crisis calls. Sorry about that, y'all. Answering crisis calls, doing life skills classes, anything like that. Direct service, you can volunteer to do that. Or if you want to do more admin, filing and helping in that nature, and or events. So there's multiple ways. There's a lot of times we need help with childcare. While support groups are going on, to give mom just a break. And we want support groups to help the children too. So if we've got little babies and we need help with childcare. So there's donation days. We need help because we have a donation day the first Friday of every month. We have a big storage unit that constantly is turning over and we need help recycling some of those things. So there's a bunch of opportunities. So you can either go to our website, and print the volunteer application, complete it and send it in, or you can speak to my volunteer outreach coordinator.
And what's your number, Amy? I'm gonna put it in the group chat.
Okay, it's 706-736-2499.
So it's safehomesdb.org,
Mm-hmm.
and it's 706-736-2499.
Yes, and that is also the crisis hotline number.
Okay.
So if you call that number and you are a victim, then you're talking to an advocate, to a crisis hotline. Otherwise, you can just say you need to speak. You want to volunteer, and they'll route you to the right person.
So I want to open it up to those that are on. We do have several young ladies on tonight, and welcome to everyone that I have not spoken to. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're so excited that you guys are here, and this is very informative. It's very serious. It's something near and dear to my heart. I don't share my story enough. I said I'm going to write a book one day, but I was married, and most people, it's so funny now when I say it, I was married for 18 years, and everybody's like, when? Because they've only known me post my marriage, and so was married for 18 years, but the majority of my abuse was more mental. There were 2 instances of physical abuse in 18 years. And you're right, you don't say to the person, you should just leave, because there's so many factors. And I got married young. I was 19, had no clue what marriage was about, no clue what I was doing, just trying to do the right thing, and it ended up being the wrong thing still. But so now I'm very aware, like you said, watching people's demeanor or watching people's interaction or just hearing something, and it has just stirs something in me. So I can typically discern when something is not right with women, because I guess of what I've gone through. So if there's anyone on the line that wants to ask a question or has any information they want to share or whatever, I'm going to open the floor up right now. So if you want to talk with Amy and ask her specific questions.
Stacy said, how long does it take after, hold on, let me see, she put it in the chat. How long does it take after filing an application before you get follow-up, if you made it or not?
You're talking about for volunteering. So if you fill out the application to volunteer, then we get right back in touch with you. Now, because we are state mandated, we have to do background checks. And depending on what you're volunteering to do, then you have to do 20 hours of training. A lot of that can be done online at your own pace in your own home, but then there's 4 hours that's actually in the office of training. But what Hannah normally does is if you send in that application, she goes ahead, she'll review it, see what your availability is, call you, set up an interview. talk with you about your interest. Why are you interested in safe homes? Find out what you love to do, what your skill sets are in. Do the background check. Let you know the opportunities that we have available. We just plunge you right on in because we always are looking for help.
And Valeria, I see you've unmuted, so you have something, Ms. McIntyre?
Yes. I'm sorry I'm looking so bad. I pulled over. This is something important to me that I want to throw something in. Does it matter who abused you?
Does it matter who abused who? Is that what you asked?
Yeah, this doesn't, because most time we're talking about spouses or ex-spouses or boyfriends. This year, I just became aware of, and I'm sorry I'm looking so bad. I've been in the gym and everything.
You're fine.
You're fine.
This year, I think there's a new awareness. I'm gonna say it like that because I think there's an ongoing or a growing awareness of narcissism. That's been a word and a term that I've noticed across social media, across different social media, because and that has become, and I'm gonna say it that way because of something that has happened to me this year, and it wasn't a spouse, wasn't an ex-spouse. Now I am a victim of domestic violence from my first husband, which was years ago, back in '92, when I graduated from Payne. I was married, and yes, and I actually went to a shelter right here in Augusta. I'm not from Augusta, but I'm very grateful and thankful. That's when I became first aware and grateful to the shelter that made me aware that I wasn't alone, and that gave me some information, and I got out of that. So that, I've divorced over 30 years from that, and grateful. But what I've just recently become aware of was narcissism and how that can lead to domestic violence. I've been recently assaulted, and I'm nervous and not wanting to even say by who, because it was a family member.
Okay, so yes, so we do, we are domestic violence, family violence, intimate partner violence. So, if someone is being charged with domestic violence, there are certain guidelines by the law that it has to be present. I'm gonna read it because I got it right here. Present or past spouses, parents of the same children, parents and children, step parents and stepchildren, foster parents and foster children, and other persons living formally in the same household, and dating violence. So if the person who has victimized you is a boyfriend, if you've lived with them, if it's a family member, if it's any kind of intimate partner relationship, we can help you. We provide those services. The only time we don't provide is if me and Tonia were roommates and we were to get into an altercation, and it doesn't fall under any of these other things. We can't provide services for that. But if it's a family member, then yes, we do provide services for family violence as well.
And I also have, we have a young lady that normally joins Tuesday Talks, and she works for the solicitor's office as a victim advocate. And so they do manage those types of relations. It doesn't matter who it is. Domestic violence is domestic violence. And so if you'd like, I could get you her information as well. So between Amy and Shauna Biles, we could definitely get you some resources.
Right. You don't have to have reported it to the police. You don't have to do any kind of, we don't have to have any kind of report. The only thing that will happen is if you call the crisis hotline number and you share your story, then we will give you resources and options and find out. We want to meet you where you are and find out what you need and help you along this journey. It can even be a temporary protection order. What I understand, the only time, and it's been in the legislation, and I'm hoping that the House has already passed it. I need to get back on there and make sure. But
Look
that
at what you're
everything
doing.
that I was just talking about with domestic violence, and the relationship that I just read is when you can get a temporary protection order. But in dating violence, especially if you're under 18, you couldn't get any kind of protection.
What?
And we are seeing more and more
What?
for being victimized. And so there is trying to pass a law now that even those can get, protection through the temporary protection order, which would be awesome. But to go back to what we were just talking about, if it's any kind of family violence, intimate partner, mom, daughter, dad, brother, any kind of family dynamic, we can provide services for.
Does anybody else have any questions or?
I do have a question. I'm involved in so much. Most of my volunteer work nowadays is on the move volunteer work. So I wouldn't be the person nowadays that would actually come into the office and do your admin work, but I would be that one that would go out and actually meet this woman that may need to escape or go somewhere. And I'm that one that come and help pick her up, with no fear. So do you have it where like sometimes they may need to be picked up or may need someone to meet them? Like I could do that kind of volunteer work. That would be me. So do y'all have it where sometimes they may need to be picked up or dropped off or something like that?
So to answer your question, and I appreciate your heart and your willingness to go and pick up. However, when we have someone that needs to be dropped off or picked up, we either use law enforcement or yell a cab or something of that nature because of the liability. Yeah, now you can't just walk up to you don't know where the abuser's at, and it would be such a dangerous situation for you, and then a liability for safe homes.
Right.
Now, if you knew someone on your own, and say Tonia, I'm just going to keep using you as an example. If you knew that Tonia was in a bad situation and you needed to go pick her up and bring her to us, absolutely.
Okay.
But to volunteer and do that, we can't allow that piece of it just from the liability standpoint. But if she needs to get transportation, we do provide transportation. So if you know of someone who needs to get there in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the day, whatever, we can provide that transportation to get her to our facility.
Okay, no problem. I definitely understand, and I thank you for what you're doing. I'm a survivor, big time survivor of domestic violence, and so now that I'm out of it, I feel like the warrior.
Yeah, that's right. And
I'm on my way. Tonia can tell you. I pulled up to people's house before and called the cops, but I was there before the cops, and I've helped a few people escape for this, and because it's such a passion, because I know what I survived from, because I know what I've been saved from. When you see somebody that wants to get out, it's really, to me, crucial to get them out while they're like, okay, I need to go, because after a while you go right back into it and you'll be right back in it. So when I hear somebody call and say, I'm ready to do this, just come get me now, I'm that person that's like, I'm on the way, because I know that may be that only time that you get to get them to escape and save their life. And so just thank you for what you all do over there at Safe Homes as well. I wish, during my days that I had someone. I got out on my own, but what you all are doing is saving women, and it's a blessing. So thank you for your ministry and what you all are doing over there.
Well, I appreciate that, and I tell you, it's forums like this that I love, because until you've walked in those shoes, you can't really know exactly what. And you can say domestic violence, but every situation is different.
Right.
It is just not black and white. And there's so many, you telling your story, Tonia, you telling your story, even the young lady who was just asking about the family violence, that's where you learn and you develop the courage and the hope and the different things that you need in order to leave that situation. Just because you've walked in those shoes. We do a lot with teens now. That's a program that we offer. It used to just be like the small children, but you know, just like we teach, domestic violence is generational. You either grow up being a victim,
Yeah.
or you marry, an abuser, or you become an abuser. Whatever the case may be. And so we work a lot with our teens to break that cycle. And into the school systems and things like that. And for them, to hear the encouraging stories and to be made aware, like they don't know that they're abusers because they're just portraying what they've learned in their own home.
Right.
So even if you see a child or a teenager, step up and just talk, because they may not realize, I grew up and I was dating this guy. I thought the sun set and rose, and this dude and my mom picked up different signs. But it was things like, oh my gosh, he loves me, because every time I went to the mall with my mom or went off with my friend, I had to call and check in when I left, when I got there, when I got home. He did become violent, but he never hit me. He would punch my car, and I didn't understand that. I didn't grow up, in that environment. But I was so thankful to my mom. She immediately, the day after I graduated high school, she shipped me to my grandmother's and away from here, because I wasn't strong enough to break that cycle by myself. And so that's what I'm saying. It takes all of us speaking up and all of us stepping in and all of us, again, making it our business and sharing our stories with one another, encouraging one another, bringing hope to one another. That's where you're going to break that cycle. And if a sister to a sister realizes that she has that trust in you, you're going to win her over in some sort of way. You're planting the seeds for her to eventually leave, and giving her that courage. She may not leave today and she may not leave tomorrow, but she's eventually going to leave.
Right.
And it could be from just the little things that you're sharing and stating to one another.
Yeah, that's true. I think the more you talk and listen, encourage, and just be that listening ear, because they have different moments when they're ready. And like Camilla said, when they're ready, and you have to move right then, because it's so easy for them to go back. It's so easy for him to draw them back or threaten them back. And so, I tell people all the time, all of my friends and those that are close to me know my phone stays on 24/7. At first, my sister didn't understand, but you just never know when somebody needs you. It may be 3 a.m. in the morning. It may be 7 p.m. at night.
Right.
Domestic violence doesn't have business hours. And I tell people that all the time. When there's an emergency, it's not always during business hours. And I don't care what line of work you work in. And so I always, avail myself to whomever is in need. Whoever has my number, they know I sleep with my phone on loud by my bed, because, at any time, if somebody needs me, I want to be there. And so I do thank you for what you do, what Safe Homes does. You guys have done some phenomenal work, and it's hard work. And it takes commitment and it takes compassion. And sometimes we don't always have those two ingredients when people are taking care of folks or trying to help folks. We have to make sure that we're working from a place of compassion, from love, and not because, it's just a job, because this is not just a job. This is a ministry in and of itself,
Well, that's how I got into this. I was, my kids are next door, so I don't want to talk too loud, but I was in ministry. I was married to a Southern Baptist pastor, and for 13 years, and it was not physical by no means, but you bring up the narcissism and you bring up the control and the different things of that that I experienced. And when I finally left, it was the hardest thing I ever had to do, because I was leaving my church. I was leaving everything that I knew to walk away from that. And it's one of the hardest things that you'll ever have to do, is to walk away. But I was so thankful, and I didn't know about Safe Homes, but that's how I got into the work. I ended up having a baby, our third baby, by myself, and I just kept saying, Lord, there's purpose in everything.
It is.
And I don't know what the purpose is of this, and I don't know why I'm pregnant, having another baby, and I don't understand anything. And you know, that how many people that I've just been able to help. And so I just kept saying, Lord, put me in a place where I can continue to help women. Never in a million years did I ever think. I didn't know about safe homes, and I grew up here. Never did I know about them. And got a call from a dear friend that just said, hey, there's a finance position open. And I thought, there's no way I'm gonna get it because I don't even have a college degree. You know, I just experienced. And, you know, I just believe that, you know, I've, through the teen dating violence, through the marriage that I was in, and the things that I've gotten to experience, it hadn't all been joyful, but it sure has led me to a road of where I can sure help someone else.
And I love that you said, I didn't have a degree, you know, and God knew that. And so I tell people all the time, I've had this debate. One of my Tuesday talks was about this, to have a degree or not to have a degree. That's the question. And I don't begrudge anyone that has gone on and studied and gotten a degree. I do not. However, I don't have a degree, and I've been able to work in jobs that they definitely say you have to have a degree. But if that's your ministry and if that's what you're called to do, I don't care what man says, God will make a way for you to do what he wants you to do, regardless of what the paper says. You got to have a master's, you got to have this. Yeah, no, and people don't even understand why. They're like, well, she doesn't have a degree. However, we want you. I mean, I'm a living witness. I know I have people on the line that are witness. So, you know, when you walk in your purpose, God will open doors that no man can close. God will make a way for you that, and I didn't mean to go off on the God tangent, but it hit me. Right. Like, you know, when God says yes, it don't matter what man says. I don't care.
That's right.
I don't care what the application says. I don't care what the job history, it doesn't even matter. And you wouldn't be able to help the women the way you're helping them had you not walked that walk yourself. You know, I can't minister to a crackhead because I've never been on crack, but I can minister to a young lady that's been in an abusive relationship. I can minister to someone who doesn't have a degree and is struggling to find her purpose. You know, those are the things that I walk myself. So you are just doing what you were created to do at the end of the day.
Well, and not to make light of any of that, but I'm like you, I'm so passionate and compassionate. And sometimes I'm like, God, why'd you give me so much?
Exactly.
Like,
I say the same
I just
thing.
cry at the drop of the hat. And so they're like, do not let Amy answer the crisis calls. Don't let her, or, you know, if anything is like, don't let her go up in the shelter by any means, you know, because I'm up there babysitting, you know, and not doing what I need to be doing. But
and that's me trying to take on too much and getting too emotional and crying.
Yeah, like, just don't let her do it.
I need somebody else.
Yeah, but you know, it's a reminder to me when I go to that door though, and I see a black eye, or I see you know, a lady crying. It just puts me back in that place that I need to be when I'm discouraged and I don't want to write another grant. Yes, I do. Because it could be what's saving her and keeping our doors open. You know, so it's a reminder.
Absolutely. Ladies, does anyone else have any questions, comments, or anything else they want to say before we wrap up? This has been very enlightening. This has been very encouraging as well to know that these resources are right here in our community, in our backyard. You service 10 counties, and that says a lot. And you even serve outside the county if somebody doesn't live here, because when I worked with United Way and Procter & Gamble, I remember distinctly one year, a young lady, it was her child's birthday. They had just come from Arizona. They didn't have anybody here. And we ended up throwing a birthday party for the little child. When they came home from the bus, we had balloons and a cake. And this was at one of the safe homes that you guys used to have. And so this young lady came from Vegas on a bus. And so you guys do take people from outside of the state of Georgia.
Yeah, we do. And, you know, and if they're, you know, one thing that that's probably one of our struggles is, you know, if someone calls from out of state and they need legal advocacy, then we try to work with that shelter, because every state has multiple domestic violence shelters. And so we try to work within those realms, because if she needs legal help, we can't provide that because we're not in Arizona, or we're you know, wherever. But if she's just trying to get to safety, you're right. We've had them from all over out of state to come. And too, that's another thing that we do. If someone comes to us and they just do not feel safe in the Augusta area at all, and they're willing to relocate, and they have family members in California. We'll put them on a Greyhound. We put them on flights before, whatever the case may be, to get them to safety, and or we partner with the other 47 agencies, and we can relocate them there, and we pay for all those expenses for them.
Wow. That's amazing, which is why it's important. So what I will challenge the ladies to do, if you're out and about, just speak about safe homes, tell people about them, tell people how to volunteer, tell people, how they can donate. I'm quite sure it's on your website if there's a donate button, because it takes money to do anything. And in this season of COVID, a lot of nonprofits are hit hard with their budgets because of not having the resources, or not being able to do fundraise or what they normally do. And people are cutting back because jobs are cutting back, people out employment. And so I know donations may be down, but if there's anybody that knows somebody with a pocket full of money and they want to give it to Safe Homes of Augusta, please share the information.
Absolutely.
And share the mission.
And two times, just so, I'm seeing what some people are writing about degrees and things like that, and professions. We also do trainings. I mentioned law enforcement. Of course, we do law enforcement training, but, we're every professional sector, we will go. I've actually got a trainer who will go in and train about domestic violence. We've gone in and we've trained nurses, looking at what to look for when in the screening process. We've gone to industries because with, now the Procter & Gamble's gone, but like FPL food and the different industries, in the hospitals, just making sure that everybody understands what their roles are as a coworker, things to look for as a coworker. Again, the warning signs. We get a lot more in depth about what domestic violence is and the effects and the characteristics of all that. But we do trainings. We speak at Rotary clubs, where I'll go and I'll talk all day long.
No, that's good, because you think about, people going to work, and if you're not equipped or, cognizant enough to recognize someone who works for you, works with you, works alongside you, in those environments, then you may be that saving grace for that person if they just come to work one day and you're able to recognize and say, hey, do you need help? Or hey, because all it takes is for somebody to approach them, and that kind of gives them that freedom to talk, that freedom to share, especially if they're not in the confines of where they're usually abused at. So, I think about even my days at Procter & Gamble, we had a plant of over 1,000 people, but I made it my business to know 90% of those people by name, by department. Yeah, I mean, that's just me. That's my nature, because you just never know. And we did I managed this thing called People Supporting People, and it was a week-long training that we took 90% of the site through that I initiated. I went to this training in Ohio, came back to Georgia and said, I want to do it. And my plant manager was like, and mind you, I'm brand new to the company, 2 years in, and she was like, okay, if you can find somebody to do it with you, then I'll give you permission. So, and we did this exercise, it's called a life map. And you had to talk about your highs and your lows and everything that you remember in, different years. And when I tell you, most people who worked alongside each other never knew, oh, you were divorced, or you had a child that died. Oh, I had a child that died. You never find out the commonalities, because at work, you're never talking about that. It's just go to work, or you assume this person's lazy, or you assume this person doesn't want to work. And that's not the case. They've been up all night because they are being abused, or those things draw that out. And so I think that's very important for you guys to train, those in the workspace. Oh, look at the puppy.
Sorry. I was trying to keep her from barking. Sorry.
It's okay. But Amy, I appreciate you. Yes, everybody is saying this has been very informative. Thank you for sharing. And so it has been informative, and it does take me to another level of wanting to get back involved with Safe Homes more than I am now. And I will make it my business to get back involved like I used to be when I first started with Safe Homes.
We just barely touched the surface. So anytime you have,
we're going to have you back, because this is that important that is not just a one and done. So definitely I will be calling on you to say, hey, time for another chat with Tuesday Talks with Tonia. So anybody else have any questions or anything before we wrap up?
I do just have one quick question. I have a sisterhood, Amy, of about 74 sisters, and this is something that I definitely would want to present to them as far as getting trained up. So do you do it in a group setting as far as appointment wise, or you have certain classes set up where you do it at certain times and you come in during those certain trainings? Because I would love to present this to my sisterhood. You know, a lot of times you can be in a sisterhood of 75 people and we may not know what is happening behind closed doors, but that may be that one day that sister does break down and come to one of us, and to know that we are all equipped, ready, and know what we need to do would just bless me as far as a leader in my sisterhood, to have them to be able to be ready for something like that. So how does that work?
We would actually come to you. So if y'all have meetings or monthly meetings, or, you know, ever how that works, then we actually come. You just give us some dates of when y'all are meeting, and then we'll make sure that someone's there.
Okay, look forward to hearing from Chosen. My sisterhood is called Classy. I'm going to go ahead and work on that. I'll get back with you through Tonia.
Yes,
Thank you.
And you know, Tonia, please share. Well, here we can share it down here. To my email address.
Yeah, I put it in there. Let me see, to everyone. It's amy@safehomesdv.org.
Yes, and so you know, even if y'all reach out to me, then I'll put you in touch with my outreach coordinator. But we'll make sure we will come and do that training. Somebody.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're more
Well,
than
ladies, it's been a pleasure having you all tonight. We reached a record number in a while, so this was one of those topics that people wanted to hear about, people wanted to be involved in, and so I just have a question from Tonia. She said, "Did you say anything about your next event?"
No, because we're still, you know, with all this craziness, we are looking to have, we do an event called Personality Night, and I love it because it's we say it's all women, but it's about purses. So usually we've always partnered with WAFJ, the Christian radio station, because this was our way to touch faith-based, because there's so many people who listen to that radio station. And so what we do is we bring in a Christian comedian. We'll have it hopefully at a local church. The first year we had 500 women there. Actually had 499 and one man.
Wow.
We had the next year we had 400 women there. So it's depending on where we can have it. But we have a Christian comedian, and then we have food or like little desserts. It's just all girly. And then we raffle off designer purses that actually my board of directors goes out and buys.
Oh, wow.
And purchases and brings, and then we stuff them with goodies. And so we're looking at August for that event. And then we're prayerfully hoping we can have Fake It to Make It back. That's the lip sync challenge that we have in every January. So that will be January 2022.
Okay. So those are some of the fun events that you guys have alongside the golf tournaments and other events. And so that's good to know that hopefully COVID will have slowed down enough in August to be able to have the personality, because I'm a purse person. So
those are great. I'm like, I want one.
I know. Right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your information. Thank you for what you do in our community. It does not go unnoticed. You may not get the accolades that you deserve, but I just want to give you your flowers while you're here. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And I love you. I love the mission. I love the organization. My sister's like, back away slowly from the person. She knows me.
That's funny. Well, Tonia, thank you. And again, you know, anytime that, I mean, I'm like you, I think the more women that we can talk with and share with and get more in depth with this, you know, I'm very appreciative. I'm appreciative of the work that you do. And we've been together. I forgot. I was thinking, how in the world did we meet? And it was.
I don't even remember. It's been so long.
It was Procter & Gamble. And I was like,
Okay. Yeah. It's been so long.
It has been. And so thank you for your work, because there's so many people that you know that reach out to you, that you can filter them through to us. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I try my best to connect to people, and I'm the resource person. So everybody who needs anything,
everybody knows it.
Call Tonia. So
Yep, that's
I
right.
try to make sure I know what I'm
Tonya,
when they call me. So yes, thank you so much. And we will definitely have you back. And I'm quite sure you're going to have some women reaching out to you. I know my sister is already probably pulling up her screen to do the volunteer application. And yeah, if there's anything that we could do from a Tuesday Talks perspective, we're going to probably put together a training as well. I'll reach out to you and then definitely have you back. It may be where we have you on once a month or once every other month or something. Make it steady, because this is a conversation that won't go away until domestic violence ends. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, unfortunately.
I know.
But ladies, thank you so much. You all have a good, blessed night. Happy Tuesday. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
I sure will, Valeria. I see it. I sure will. Tonya, I did want to say we did have one of our favorite law enforcement on tonight. Y'all may see the name Corey Carlisle. He is amazing. He's one of our sheriffs here, and he's on because he's just informative and he cares about women. And so I did
join tonight. He's been trying to join for a while. I told him this is one he could join.
Yeah, so I did want to shout him out in case you ladies sing his name. He cares about women. He is just very passionate about the community and women. And so we were glad to have him as our special guest tonight.
Well, and let me say thank you. If you're in law enforcement, thank you for the work you do. And thank you for being a first responder. And thank you for referring. And if you need little cards to go in your car or to pass out to your crew, please let me know, because we provide law enforcement with little cards that they can just, anonymously hand over to a victim if they need that. So thank you.
Sergeant Corey Carlisle.
I would come out to you, Amy, and get those cards, because, man, we deal with it every night anyway. So that'll be good to have those to get to the women that need that help. So
yes, please. If you just want to call me tomorrow or whatever, we can either mail them, we can bring them to you. Are you Richmond County?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Bring them to you, whatever the case may be. Just reach out to me and we'll get those cards to you. Or if you can, you're more than welcome to come by.
I know where y'all located at, so
I figured you might know where we are.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining, Corey.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you.
You learned something, didn't you?
I already knew all the stuff anyway, because I took the family violence classes.
Okay.
I got trained in it already. So I just wish that the department will make everybody else take it, because they don't understand it. So,
Well, Corey, all right, well, here we go. I need your help then getting into them, because you're right. And it don't matter which county it is. I mean, we do struggle with Richmond County. But, it takes one officer. I don't know if you know Jamie Moss, who is in Columbia County. He actually just turned that around, and he got in and he plowed in and really started making a difference in his unit. And it was just him. He got he did get some backlash about, some of it from getting so involved. Mm-hmm. But there wasn't a day that hardly went by that he wasn't referring someone, bringing someone. He would actually be on a call and call for the lady and then hand her the phone. Like, if you could help us with that, because we want to do more trainings, because you're right. I mean, y'all were in the most dangerous position, and that's the most calls you go on.
That's 90% of our calls.
Yes. And, and we are definitely not experts at the law by any means, but at least we can share, the barriers, because I think Scott Peebles used to sit on our board a long time ago. And he said, Amy, it never dawned on me until y'all taught about why they stay, that it really struck a chord with him to look at those calls differently.
Yeah.
And
that's what happened with me when I took the class. I went to a training class with it and just listened to the stories and the things that was going on. I approach everything different now, because you have to. We as men go to it like, oh, there's nothing going on. No, there's something going on there. We didn't see the signs at first. And that is one of the things that with a younger department that we have now, the young guys that's coming in, they don't understand that, because they don't have that training yet. So they laugh at me because I analyze everything and I go through it top to bottom. So when I ask those questions of them, what do you see? How do you handle that? What do you do? And they be like, huh? I didn't know that. But now I tell them quick to go to the domestic violence classes, go to them, because they need to have.
Do they not mandate them? I know y'all probably go through the ones at the initial thing. What's it called?
The training, it's only 16 hours when they go through the training, but I went through the whole course.
The whole thing. That's the one that Jamie went through that I'm telling you about. Yeah.
So, and the young lady that said she went to the house with the delivery and she saw the young girl, that could be sex trafficking. And
Yeah.
I almost said that, but I didn't know, you know.
You could
Yeah.
have. You could have. Yeah.
It's a hub for sex trafficking out of
Yeah.
Atlanta. So it's from
And it's
Atlanta.
close to master's time.
Yeah. So it's from Atlanta all the way up to Columbia, South Carolina. That's the hub. Augusta just in the middle. So the sex trafficking is real in this area. So.
And, you know, I work a lot with Child Advocacy Center with Carrie Viola Brooks, who's the executive director there. And of course, they do a lot of child trafficking cases. And I was just astounded at how many, just in Augusta, like I was like, oh my gosh, not even when it's time for masters.
Right.
I was just taken back.
The kids that a lot of young kids, a lot of young girls that run away from home, and they get involved with these older men or women, and they sell them on the market, and nobody didn't even know it.
Right.
You probably won't see them for 2 or 3 months, and you see them again, they back, and you talk to them, and they'll tell you, yeah, I was here, and I was in this city, I was in that city, but you know what they was doing.
Right.
So,
well, and I hope I answered that, Miss Linda, correctly, because I wasn't real sure, you know, for us, we call DFACs, you know, if I don't know, because I don't know if Richmond County, because we have called for well visits too, but we just never know if it happens. And I don't know how that works.
When y'all reach out to us about that, we don't get enough information. So it's hard to go and deal with something if we don't have the information. Some people call, I need you to go check on this house, such as this, that. Give us some more information. We need to know more, because we just can't violate nobody's rights and go to their house and do that. We can go say, hey, how you doing? We got to complain about this. And they can say, oh, there's nothing going on. But we don't know the indicators to look for. We're not going to do anything. We're going to say, okay, everything is good, leave. And that's one of the things that's part of the training that we need is picking up on the indicators.
Right. Yes.
Indicators when you go to a house, because when I go to somebody's house to check on somebody, if they don't make eye contact with me, I know something's wrong. First of all. Second is they're very short with their answers. I'm looking like, okay, something's going on. Let me ask some more questions. Let me see, can I get to the root of what's going on? And some of them will give you the answer, and some of them won't give you answers. Right. So it be worrying you. You go back to your car and be like, hey, what can I do now? What else can I do to just get the information that I need? And then I reach out to DFACs and stuff, like, because I work with DFACs anyway. So that's a good resource for me. I call the boss of DFACs and say, I need this done. It's going to get done. So I look forward to working with you. Anything that you need from me on my end, I'm willing to give and help. So.
Well, if you'll email me your information, your contact information, we can just start some conversations. I would love that. We need Richmond County. You know, we've got, I'm sure you probably know Alfonso Williams, the sheriff of Burke County. He sits on our board, and then Nancy Clark, who's an investigator at Richmond County. I think she works with more child molestation. And she sits on our board, but I would love to have you involved in some sort of way.
I just text you Amy's email, Corey, so you have it on your text.
Yes, I got it. And then I'll forward you my information, so it's give it you, okay?
Okay, perfect.
Y'all ladies be good. I got to go.
Thank y'all.
Right.
You see me, right? Don't you? I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I said something. I love it. My thing is to live and to try to help as many women as I can to not go through what I went through. If I see one saved, it blesses my heart, because I know what I went through. And so to see somebody getting saved and to have somebody like Corey, we know him personally, you know, outside of him being a sheriff, we know his heart. So when you have somebody that you know you can trust, that you know will come, you know will care, you know will help, that's something that you definitely want to be like, hey, listen, we got this one person that we know will put, you will put our names
right
for him, because that's how much we know and watch him, and we know who he is. So I'm excited, definitely, Amy. Pixel 3 is exciting.
Yes, happy. Thank you, Camilla.